does the name come from? I feel like you're ready to go every Sunday with this kind of name.
As you can see here, this is the definition of brawl. And it's just, it felt like something was missing. So, I thought about it, and, there are a lot of oversaturated podcasts in the Washington football team world. So I kind of got down on it. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I mean, I'm going to be human. I'm going to keep it a buck. Then it hit me. I searched far, I searched wide, and then fate led me to my two new co-hosts, and I am happy to say
I'm not fucking leaving.
So I am pleased to say that joining me now as my two co-hosts on the Washington Brawl podcast moving forward are two of the hardest working guys in the Washington football team fan base. First up is Rio Robinson, the host of the Red Hot Rambling with Rio podcast, someone who has become a very close friend and has always kept me honest. Hell, we keep each other honest. So I'm stoked to have him on the Washington Brawl podcast moving forward. Also joining the Washington Brawl team moving forward is someone that is highly respected in our world and someone who is constantly pushing out great content, and this is his time of year, Adam Aniba. Adam is actually one of the most recurring guests on the Washington Brawl podcast, and it is a true honor to have someone of his pedigree on the show moving forward. Make sure you guys go check out the Burgundy and Gold Report. He has some great stuff coming out there on a very consistent basis. As Rio says, things be popping in the group chat, and I am enthralled to show you guys what we have been working on. But before we get into it, you guys already know what time it is. Support for the Washington Brawl podcast is, of course, brought to you by our sponsor, Manscaped. It is March Madness, people. Your bracket will not be perfect, but that does not mean your balls can't be. Because if you purchase the performance package today, you get the Lawnmower 3.0, the Weed Whacker ear and nose trimmer. And these items, of course, have perfect skin-safe technology that prohibits any nicks and snags on your sack. You will also receive 2 free gifts, the Manscaped boxers and the Shed travel bag. These boxers, man, they are something else. They are silky. They're smooth. Hell, I'm wearing them right now. They are perfect. Also, that Shed travel bag is perfect whenever all this quarantine's finally done and we can finally travel. Manscaped is very committed to raising awareness for the most common form of cancer in men from age 15 to 35 and giving support for fighters, survivors, and families impacted by testicular cancer as a part of the We Save Balls initiative. So make sure you head over to manscaped.com and get 20% off plus free shipping with code BRAWL at manscaped.com. Every purchase at manscaped.com goes towards contributions made to the Testicular Cancer Society. So one more time, head over to manscaped.com, use the promo code BRAWL BRAWL to get 20% off plus free shipping on your purchase today. Thank you to Manscaped for making our holes look good during the dance. But today on Washington Brawl, people, we are back with a bang as the new trio grades Fitz-Magic in the free agency class, plus former Washington football team tight end and 106.7's own Logan Paulsen joins the show to talk pro days, 19th overall pick, and more. So for the first time in a long time, let's get on with today's episode.
Especially these days, I feel for you, bro.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Washington Brawl podcast, presented by the Brawl Network, Manscaped, and, of course, DraftKings. I am your host, Parker Hamlett, and for the first time in a very long time, I am joined by my co-hosts. As I announced earlier this week, Washington Brawl is now a 3-man gig once again. We have formed the super team because introducing first is the host of the Rambling with Rio podcast, the Enigma, the man who will cut it to you straight, Rio Robinson. Rio, it's a pleasure to have you on the team now, man.
I appreciate you sending me the invite. I'm glad to see you back. You were one of the people who inspired me to get in this podcast thing, so I'm glad to be here, man.
You got me red over here. You know, I don't know, I was talking earlier. I listen to your show all the time. You guys got to that segment about the chicken sandwich rankings, and I was like 20 minutes down the road back from a friend's house, and I stopped over. I heard about the Burger King one, sat there. You know, it was nice listening to a show that isn't just talking about Washington football. It's like nice to hear, you know, people talk about other stuff, right? Well, you know, I stop and I get this chicken sandwich, and that was the biggest fucking waste of time I think I've had all day. When you said it was nothing but lettuce, I should have listened. I sat there. I gave Burger King the benefit of the doubt, man. I sat there. I really thought I was going to enjoy myself, but I just ate basically just chicken breader, and it was absolutely disgusting. But,
hey, I gave you the answers, man.
I just didn't follow, man. I just didn't follow. But as you heard, another laugh there. Also now part of the Washington Brawl podcast is the NFL draft expert, a man who has made his rounds in the oversaturated world of Washington football team podcasts, a friend of the show and the Burgundy and Gold Report's own Adam Aniba. Adam, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, man, it's a pleasure to be back, man. You know, going through the football garbage time, just going through the experience of doing fantasy, every NFL team, you know, that's been really fun. But, you know, just to get back to, you know, passionate guys that are just talking about football, that's what I'm looking to do. And like you said, the oversaturated, I'm cool with as much content out there as possible, as long as we keep it unique. And I feel like that's something we can bring to the table for sure, guys.
And, you know, keeping it unique is really important. You know, when that, like Rio was talking about in his show, when that first came out and the whole oversaturation thing got thrown out there, a lot of people got butthurt about it. I mean, not like Burgundy Globe's butthurt, because that's a whole new level of butthurt in this community. But everybody got kind of offended. But I kind of saw what the guy was saying, man. Like you said, Rio, everybody's kind of got to have their own take, man. And I think it's very important to be different. Don't you agree?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of guys like Adam, like, he makes his rounds on the podcast because he knows what the hell he's talking about. He knows he will give us every number. He knows exactly what he's talking about. But after hearing it time after time and hearing the same regurgitated information on everyone's podcast, I just got to switch it up sometime. Like, there's other stuff to talk about, but you can all link it back to the Washington football team because that's what we're here for.
Yeah, look, man, I understand being professional. You're not working for the team yet, but at the same time, you're not working for the team. You know, it's good to cut it to people, give it to them straight. You know, Rio and Adam, of course, are going to still do their respective shows, but we're all here to do one word, and that is brawl. And as of right now, of this date, we're recording on, what was it, Friday? Yeah, Friday. We are 27 days away from the NFL draft, and free agency is seemingly in the rear view mirror. Just got the final wave out the way. And I don't really give a shit what your analysts have to say about it. I think the Washington football team did a damn good job. That, you know, I got to give a round of applause for this front office, this organization. I was very impressed with what they did. Didn't spend too much house money. Adam, Rio, without going too much into detail, because we are here to break that stuff down and grade it, how did you guys feel about free agency overall?
Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, you know, we got to start with the Ryan Fitz-Magic. You know, I put out an article right away, just like trying to, you know, reel in some fans that, you know, there's no need to be, you know, talked off the bridge, but at the same time, there's no need to be, you know, too excited. Like, Fitzpatrick is what he is. And you have to take it into context, because in the last 16 games, the Washington quarterbacks, 3,768 yards, 16 touchdowns, 16 INTs with a 64.7 completion rate. And you know, that's between, I think we had 4 quarterbacks during that time. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Ryan Fitzpatrick, people want to focus on the interceptions, his career. He's a gunslinging bum, whatever. Okay. Last 16 starts, he's got 4,414, 27 touchdowns, only 13 interceptions to that, and a 65.2. So between the completion percentage, we're not talking about huge differences, but one man that's a quote unquote backup closer did better than all of the Washington quarterbacks combined. And we're talking about in that mix, there was 2 first-round guys in there, one an overall pick and one in Haskins, the other one. Regardless of how late those guys were picked, it just put into context. When you want to bridge quarterback, either 32 or in his case, going on 39, it's about this season. It's not about next year. It's not about that. Right now, what's going on is they're building right now to make a run. When you make the playoffs and you win the division, it's not saying we're in a total rebuild mode. They are in a form of that, but once you do that, division suck or not, it still is what it is. So to me, I'll let you go to the next one, Rio, but Fitzpatrick, to me, that was just the way to start free agency. And I think that I saw Tyrod Taylor coming here, but Fitzpatrick, that's the best case scenario.
I mean,
for the free agents.
Rio, I had to cut you off right here, but to me, I mean, if people really want to see worst case scenario here, look over the Chicago Bears. You know,
yeah,
we had Ron Rivera go to the podium and say, well, we're going to have competition at the quarterback position. There's still the open opportunity of us being able to get somebody in April to come in and be a possible heir to the throne, maybe a Trey Lance, maybe trade for a Justin Fields. Who knows? There's still that window of opportunity there. We didn't stroll in the Red Rocket and say he's quarterback one for 2021. Right. We are completely aware of what Ryan Fitzpatrick is. We know what we signed up for. You know, he may be on his 9th team, but, you know, this is a 16-year career right here. And, you know, people can say whatever they want to about Fitz. He can't close out. He always loses his job, whatever have you. But this team is building a foundation, and this foundation is strong. And we're not going to overexert ourselves and do something that's going to make the whole house fall down. Rio?
Right.
With Ryan Fitzpatrick, I'm not predicting a Super Bowl, but I can respect the fact that we did not go get some pedestrian medium jag like Tyrod Taylor or Teddy Bridgewater. I need some type of upside. We have a great wide receiver one who we haven't even seen really earn his wings yet because he has not had consistent enough quarterback play to get him the ball on a daily basis. You would think the guy that went to college with you can put the ball on your fucking chest sometime, but he couldn't even put it he couldn't even put it on the chest of the defense. Like he's throwing it to skyscrapers the whole time.
Hey, don't slander the Ohio State connection, man. Not the Ohio State connection.
Man.
Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
But listen, you want to go look at the tape. The truth is, what was Terry doing there? He was making Campbell look like a star there because honestly, he was just laying blocks all day and laying wood. He was running his routes, but he wasn't focused on that offense at all because he was just too damn good at everything else.
He does the dirty work, man.
You know,
does the dirty work.
And when he came into the NFL, I had him with A.J. Brown, Hollywood Brown, and everyone said, you're crazy to have Metcalf. I said, no, I have Metcalf behind him. Look what happened. It got reversed. So not that I'm, whatever. But no, McLaurin, once you saw what he did in college, he's the total package coming to the NFL. Then you throw in that 4.3 speed. Like I said, put him with a quarterback that's just going to put the ball out there. If their teams are going to focus on him, our offense is going to eat with everybody else, man.
Oh, for sure. I'm here for the entire Ryan Fitzpatrick experience, and I know both sides of it. There's going to be times where he's doing the most. I will take turnovers when you try to at least push the ball down the field. I cannot watch. God bless Alex Smith and his whole miraculous, resilient comeback, but I cannot watch him throw the ball to J.D. McKissick on a 2-yard out for 20 times a game. I can't watch it anymore. I cannot do it.
He's not going to do that. That's the thing.
Exactly.
I watched that. Out of those 13 interceptions, I counted 6 that were either in garbage time or the receiver just totally gave up on the route. You didn't have to be an expert to see. Instead of going out, he just went in, and they call him on TV miscommunications. Fitzpatrick doesn't have miscommunications like that in his time of his career. So bring that total down to 6 interceptions. In this offense, you're not going to see those 2-yard dump downs. If he's going to do that, he's going to run for it, and he's going to lower his shoulder on someone. So that's the kind of guy that you want, that you don't really care about the future. And honestly, he doesn't really care. For $10 million, he's willing to throw his body to the wall. So, man, go Harvard. I love this kid, man.
I love it too.
And I can say kid because I'm 3 years older. So
he's over there getting his neck snapped against the Raiders, throwing dimes in crunch time. I mean, I love it, man. He brings that big dick energy that DC needs right now, man. I think he's more than a meme. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we aren't swiping left or right. I know I've done a lot of that lately, but we are grading the significant signings, and heavy emphasis on the word significant, because I hate to break it to you guys. I know I talked about this a little bit before we started recording. I don't give a shit about Darryl Roberts. He's just a Fabian Monroe replacement to me, or the kick return that I can't remember the name of. Everybody already knows the re-signings. We are here to grade the big ones. So are you guys ready?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
As you guys see here, we have our nice little dry erase boards for those who are watching on YouTube. We're going to put our letter ranks here. And I guess we will start off with the man that we have discussed already, and that is quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick, who signed a 1-year, $10 million deal. I think it's 12 with incentives with the Washington football team. You either love this move or you hate it. But whatever side of the spectrum you are on, the man, the myth, the legend, Fitz-Magic is in D.C. for 2021, and he is the guy, seemingly, unless we are trying to groom somebody come in via the draft. It's going to be a quarterback competition, as Rivera said. Rio, I'll start with you. What do you grade the move and why?
Keep it simple. Oh, where's it at? Where's it at? Why is it coming back? Oh, I got the background, so it's not gonna.
Oh, that's hilarious. Bro.
All right, my grade is an A.
That's hilarious.
That is hilarious. My grade for the pick is an A. It is a clear upgrade. We're not expecting him to be here for 5 to 7 years, but while he is here, he's going to give the team some energy. He's going to push the ball down the field. He's played in every offense that's existed in the sport of football because he's a fossil, and he's going to come in. There's the quarterback competition. Put that in quotes because that's there because he told Taylor Heineke there will be one. But
Kyle Allen.
I mean, sure. One of them, if we draft a quarterback in the first few rounds, one of them is gone. I know that we are not tied to either of those guys. God bless them. They're going to compete in camp, but there's no quarterback competition. There was a quarterback competition last year because Haskins sucked, but Rivera couldn't come out and say that shit because the owner drafted him.
Kyle Allen to me is just the boyfriend that's already moved out. You know, you just gotta give him a couple more of his things, and then the relationship's over with. You know, he's a backup plan at this point, a backup plan. You know, he's playing Z. I no matter how much of a man crush Turner and Rivera have on Kyle Allen, I think once you bring in that quarterback of the future, I mean, he sees his way out the door. I think Heineke's miraculous performance against the Buccaneers, have you in a losing effort, is definitely going to keep him on this roster, especially with that deal being signed. So you said an A, right?
I'm going with an A, not a plus or minus, just an A. Tremendous upgrade. We're going to see more than 16 touchdowns and like barely 3,000 yards. Upgrade.
Something you said on your podcast as well was that Ryan Fitzpatrick is the guy used the word antithesis
of Alex Smith.
Jesus, butchered the hell out of that shit. The antithesis of Alex Smith. You know, we're over here because of Alex's miraculous comeback story, celebrating him. You know, like you said, throwing those 2-yard out routes to J.D. McKissick and Fitzpatrick. You're either going to live by him or die by him. You know, there's a couple performances last year in Miami before he ended up losing his job to Tua, where, you know, he definitely made some game-ending mistakes, and you really hope he comes over to DC and you're going to have to anticipate them, like you said. That's just a part of who he is. You know what you're getting. This organization knows what they're signing up for, and as Aniba said, it is a bridge quarterback. So, Adam, what do you grade the move?
Solid B. And the reason I give this solid B is because I think there's a lot of fans looking at a C move, but if they didn't have the weapons, I'd be like, you know, that's probably around that C+ range. We talk about the Tyrod Taylors on; those are C moves. So this gets brought up to a B because it's a year in which they're going to be able to surround him with weapons. And that's why I just keep going on pods. We're talking about receivers right now because, you know, as fans, you have to really break it down. So right now we've been on the receivers. You know, we're going to start to get more into tight ends and stuff. And then you get close and you break them down because there's just too many prospects to break down right now. But with Fitzpatrick, you already are starting with Terry McLaurin. You have Gibson at running back and McKissick. And these guys are going to be used a lot more as receiver. I truly believe that. I scouted Gibson coming out. He should have been used more in the receiving game. And then now you have Samuel. So you're going into that, and then you're bringing in Humphrey. There's a familiar face. He's more of the veteran. We'll talk about him in a minute. But I think all that collectively, it makes the move a solid B because I think that your offensive line is going to be a huge question mark. If they were dominant, if we had a left tackle, everything solidified, I'd say B+ move. But I'm concerned about the offensive line, and that's what I've said. I'm not counting on 16 games from him. I think 12, 13 is probably going to be relative, and it's not because he's injury prone. It's just it's what it is. We've seen what this offensive line can do, and they need a lot of upgrades. That's a lot to ask through one draft. So solid B. I think he probably, you know, that 16-game stretch of 4,000+ yards, I don't see it for us. I see probably in the range of 3,200 yards, 20 touchdowns, and probably about 10 or 12 interceptions. But I think what that means is the run game is really going to get going at Washington. And with that happening, I don't think everything will have to be on him. And I don't think that's what you really want to do with him at this point in his career. If they can get the run game going, him going in the defense, he'll be working with a short field. So that's when you can utilize, you know, some of your 50-50 guys. So I think this is the best situation defensively he's ever been in. So you're talking about taking chances. He's not going to have to take 50, 60-yard chances. It's going to be more like, you know, taking chances from the 45 because we're just out of field goal range in 3rd and 15. So I can see him doing that. And, yeah, solid B for this guy, man.
I agree with that grade. You know, I've talked a little bit about his tenure in Miami. Some people would argue that was one of the best chances he's ever had with an NFL team. His 9th team he's played on, 16-year career. I do see this kind of playing out as the Dolphins blueprint. I don't see him playing all 16 games either. So, Rio, I'll start with you, kind of like a sidebar question. How many games do you see Ryan Fitzpatrick starting for the Burgundy and Gold in 2021?
I actually brought this up, and before I get to it, y'all got to adjust. It's 17 games now, baby.
That's right.
Sorry.
It's going to take time.
That is going to be weird. These record predictions are going to be so odd. There's no more 500.
No, there's not. We're sitting there talking about, what was it, 10-6, 9-7, and I'm just like, oh, that's not right. Yeah, I think I called somebody on that earlier. So it really is going to be an acclimation period, kind of
really
get used
weird.
to that.
For the second year, we got to adjust to something awkward, like the Washington football team placeholder name. Now this year, we got to adjust to 17 games on the schedule. I think he's going to play every game. Maybe I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid, but I think he's going to be healthy for all 17, and I don't see him losing his job to performance, because he's going to do just enough to keep us going. And I think we're going to see a significant upgrade. My A was more so the upgrade, more so than him being an A player, because he's not an A player. But I think for what he means to the locker room and what he's going to bring compared to what we had last year, which is stability, consistency, and he'll be on the field, and we're not going to have to adjust every goddamn 2 weeks with a new quarterback. That's right. So I want to see 17 games of Fitz-Magic, man.
Bringing in a bunch of role players, man, that was really the theme of this free agency. Fitz knows what he's there for. We know what we signed up for. Miami Dolphins last year, kind of reminiscing, Flores, very good defensive unit over there. They ended up putting 2 in. A lot of people would kind of perceive that as a mistake. But Aniba, what is your line of games you think Fitz is going to start in this 17-game season?
Yeah, and then I think, okay, so 13, 14, and it's just because I'm giving, a little ankle things, nothing big, nothing that's going to knock him out, and I agree with Rio, too. It's not going to be enough for Heineke to come in and take his job. I don't think that's a knee-jerk reaction, because I think that would only happen if he was really struggling. And I know fans are really caught up in the strength of schedule and blah, 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 but that's based on last year's roster. So until those rosters are solidified, I don't even think you should be measuring that power of schedule. That's just my opinion.
It's week to week.
Yeah.
So much changes.
Oh my God, that complaining about the strength of schedule. Oh my God, why do some of people watch the sport? Oh my God, we got a first place schedule. What are we gonna do? Like, come on, man.
It means you're doing something right.
Exactly.
I think we did go from 11th to 17th in strength of schedule. No, I think it was 17th to 11 because we're playing Buffalo, if I'm correct, week 7.
Every schedule every year is hard.
Yeah,
I agree. And you have no idea. You have no idea who's going to go down with injury. Then all of a sudden that game turns into a shoe-in. I mean, look at the Bengals. Burrow goes down. They're all of a sudden pedestrian. I mean, they kind of were pedestrian anyway. But I mean, you take out the best player in a lot of these organizations, and that's pretty much a guaranteed win for most teams on most weeks. So like you said, Rio, that really means nothing right now in April. That's something I don't understand why people get caught up on either. Another thing I don't understand how people are getting caught up on, I don't know if you guys caught this or not, but Colin Cowher and Joy Taylor had a segment talking about how the Washington football team did really nothing to improve with their free agency class, and said everybody else in the NFC East got better. I just can't. I cannot agree with that sentiment. I mean, you look now. I'll start off first. You look at all these other teams, right? Dak, 500 yards per game. Dark horse for MVP early in the season, still 1-4. Their defense is still fucking atrocious. You got the Eagles, the head coach Biscotti over there. Jalen Hurts can change his number to 1, but that doesn't mean the front office sees him as QB1. The Giants, they got Vanilla Haskins over there with Daniel Jones, who's falling flat on his face in open field. They overpaid Dory Jackson, in my opinion.
Don't put Haskins on him, though. He's not that bad. he'll turn it over, but he's not Haskins bad.
No, man. I think Daniel Jones is on some borrowed time in the Big Apple, man.
I think he could be on some borrowed time, but he's also actually put enough on tape to make you say,
maybe against us.
Because there's something to Daniel Jones. Dwayne Haskins, there was almost nothing. There was almost not one flash of, wow, he may actually be something. Daniel Jones turns the ball over a lot, but he does things that
I'm sorry, Rio. The difference is that the Giants don't want to eat their crow because they overdrafted Daniel Jones.
And he can actually put the ball in the hand of a receiver every now and then.
I mean, he's got one now. He's got one now. It's a nut up or shut up season for Daniel Jones.
Yeah, it's no excuse.
No excuse at all. And
that's why they got judging. You got to understand it. Like a lot of us, and I was questioning at the beginning, but as I watched this season go on and have Garrett there, I'm telling you, I am not a Jones fan either. I plucked him to death. I put him in that Trask kind of field. And the fact that he got so overdrafted. But the thing is, man, I keep saying coaching matters more in football than anything.
It
and
does.
As much as I don't like him, the fact that he can move, the question is, can he stay healthy? He's going to have to use his legs a lot. And the fact that they were, able to do what they did against Washington with, a lot of, backup guys on that defense, I think out of anyone, Washington should be more concerned with the Giants way more than the Cowboys.
I agree. They're scary. They're scary.
The Dallas guys are retiring left and right. They built that offensive line. Here we go. They're retiring. They're dropping. Even Smith, when he comes back, that's a neck injury. Remember who had that? Chris Samuels for Washington. Okay, that thing is not going to go away. It's not going to get better. Van Der Esch. This guy is another one, has neck issues. He's going to be fine for now, but these are short career guys. And
John Lee Jr.
Smith, they keep making these investments and getting good deals on guys that have had injuries in college, not Smith, but others. So what's happening? It's coming to pay the toll now. Okay. They're putting so much with Dak and then these 3 wide receivers that are going to blow everyone away. I'm telling you right now, if Washington can solve the middle linebacker and have better play in the defensive backfield, Dak's not going to be able to do anything. He's not going to outrun Sweat. He's not going to outrun Chase Young.
The decline of Zeke.
Listen, the difference is 2 years ago, what happens with Ryan Kerrigan? He's going to be resigned within a month, right? Look at him. He's still there. That's how good. That's a testament to how good this defense is. And I don't care what anyone says. To me, they're the favorite to repeat. And Philadelphia, they're the holding pattern. Dallas is what they are. As long as Jerry Jones is doing it, they are what they are. But the Giants, that's who people need to start watching because they're building something there. And what they're building right now is Jones doesn't work out. Guess what? The following year, they can go quarterback early, and they're going to be just fine.
Exactly.
They're the team and the whole league, not just NFC East. I'm telling you guys, keep an eye on them because what they were able to do against Washington I just think that their coaching showed me so much that I didn't think was there. It shows you this is why Garrett was a head coach for so long because he has a really good offensive mind and that's where he belongs. And Judge, he's taken what McDaniel should have been and he took the whole overall Belichick attitude. He's brought it there. So, man, the Giants are the team to watch. Washington, they have to take down those Giants because I think, 6 out of 7? I think
we've lost the last 5. We lost the last 5 too. That's why I don't understand the animosity and the venom I see our fans throwing at Giants. Felt like they have dominated us recently. Right. I don't care how much they've beat us, but we haven't beat them since Daniel Jones got on the field. They play very well against good teams too. Like it shows you
Seattle last year.
It shows you the coaching. Tampa, they were in there. They should have won the game. The Pittsburgh, they played well versus great teams all year. They never seemed out of it, and they were not ever getting embarrassed on Sunday. So they are a team I'm definitely watching. I'm watching.
They're scary.
That defensive unit, man, after all those additions they made last year. I was telling everybody, if Judge goes there and coaches those guys up, they're going to be scary. And it was after that Seattle win, man, that defensive unit just became locked down. Jabril Peppers stepping in for Lana Collins and just balling out. Xavier McKinney, they're kind of waiting for him to heal up. Like I said, they're on the offensive side of the ball, you're adding Kenny Golladay. If he can get the ball to him, you got your wide receiver 1 right there. Evan Ingram, Pro Bowl tight end, depends on who you ask. They got pieces across the board like Saquon's coming back. To me, they are the biggest threat in the NFC East. But I'm sorry, I don't give a shit what this narrative Fox and everybody's trying to push. We're still the best team in the NFC East, and these moves only made us better. I don't think anybody can look at the Ryan Fitzpatrick signings, the Curtis Samuel signing, all these signings we're eventually going to get to, and not say that these moves didn't immediately make us better.
Right.
So, we know who we are. We know our identity. And it is the NFC East, after all, a division that is, quite frankly, a clusterfuck. So it's still not going to be hard for Washington football team to squeak it out and go back-to-back for the first time in a very long time. So
I'll say this. The Golladay praise, good move. I'm not going to say it. He's not a good fit for us. When I heard that they were talking to him, I'm like, man, I hope it doesn't work out. Because honestly, for what he got and what he does, he'll do good in Giants. But you know what? Look what Jackson did against him when they played Detroit. Jackson was on his hip all game long. So don't be scared of this guy. It's just between the collective is what's scary over there. And Washington can solve their linebackers because that's their hole. Even out of the whole team right now, I'll argue with anyone. The linebackers, Holcomb needs some help. If you can get him 2 guys with him, this team is different, man.
Holcomb is not an every down linebacker, but that is a conversation for another day. They were very critical of the Ryan Fitzpatrick move, Joy Taylor and Colin Cowherd. I give it a B-. Like I said, Ryan Fitzpatrick, kind of a journeyman quarterback, but he is a gunslinger. He's that guy who comes in. He's going to be a nice little 1-year rental. If this ends up being the Miami Dolphins situation, that's nothing but good for the Washington football team. Ryan Fitzpatrick knows who he is. This organization knows who he is. 1-year deal, $10 million, I think 12 with incentive. So I give it a B-. I think we're all very appreciative of the move. But next is the move that I have graded the highest move. I think that was the best for the Washington football team via free agency is wide receiver Curtis Samuel, another piece on the offensive side of the ball. Day one starter, former Carolina Panthers receiver. Curtis Samuel, also a former teammate of Terry McLaurin's at Ohio State. They reunite here in the burgundy and gold. Adam, I'll start with you on this one. What are your thoughts on the Washington football team adding this familiar Swiss Army knife to Scott Turner's offense, and what do you grade it?
Give that a solid B+. It's about scheme fit. I think a lot of teams he goes to, and it's probably somewhat of an upgrade, but I think what happened is not only do they have the familiarity with him when he was in Carolina, but what Brady was able to do, Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, he had his best season. I think it was 2020, first among all receivers with at least 70 targets. His deep look, 77% catch rate, deep targets beyond 20-plus yards downfield, leading the position, and then the other category tied in the league for deep threat. So a lot of people are talking about him in the backfield, zone reads, different things like that. And he'll do that in Washington, but he's a deep threat. 4.35 speed. Then you have Terry on the other side. You can do whatever you want from him. But what I will say is he is not the answer at slot, because that's not what he is. He's not if you're putting him at the slot and leaving, you're wasting his talent. So, we'll talk about somebody in a little bit that can fill that slot role a little more. But right now, Samuel, he's a guy that you can just do so much with. And the fact that you can put him and Antonio Gibson in the backfield at the same time, teams aren't going to know who's running, who's passing. Both, should hopefully get to be better blockers, because that's right now their top weaknesses. But this is not the old school NFL. There's going to be a lot less emphasis on running backs blocking. You're still going to have to get that going, but you're going to see a lot more tight ends lining up in the backfield, H-back sets, things like that. So solid B+, because I think you're able to just march them out in the field and not even have to count on him as wide receiver too. You could just keep moving him around and, have fun with him. And that's the best part about getting him. And I think reasonable deal too.
Gibson is the weapon. I think Samuel is a Swiss Army knife, and the NFL, like you said, is a game of misdirection. We're getting, what is he, 24 years old? Not exactly a household name, man. I don't think Brady and them really used him for all they could over in Carolina. I think Scott Turner got some of his best moments while he was still over there. I think we were the favorites early. Just because of that Carolina connection. It's really nice to get him. To me, he, like you said, I don't think he's a slot receiver. I think he's that guy. He's that tandem with Terry McLaurin. Like you said, the guy we're going to talk about in a little while, I see him as a true slot receiver. Rio, what are your overall thoughts on the move? And do you think this affects the team's draft strategy for wide receiver?
It doesn't. It doesn't. I also went with a B+ for my grade for Curtis Samuel. I think he's going to be, per se, our wide receiver too, but we're going to move him around the offense, but I don't really think we're going to have him locked in. I definitely, like Adam said, I don't see him in the slot as much. So many people, just because of his frame, his size, and oh my God, he's a slot receiver. He's not a slot receiver. That's not him. That's not who he ever was. That's not how he's going to be. And we would be wasting our money if we were just going to put him in the slot for most of his snaps. Line him up opposite of Terry, put him in the backfield, run him on a jet sweep, just get him the ball. He's explosive. And most importantly, he can get behind the defense and offer some type of weapon opposite Terry McLaurin. So someone like defenses are going to be on their toes with us. We're going to be able to do so many things with the position versatility that we have on the offense right now. And it's a B+ because it's a huge upgrade to what we have. We don't have to force guys like Cam Sims on the field more than they need to be.
Or Steven.
I don't think
he's gone.
Oh yeah. Oh,
it's done. It's
get
done.
Him out of here. Get him out of here. That experiment's over, and I think we could still draft a pass catcher in the first couple rounds. Actually, I would love if we drafted a pass catcher in the first couple rounds, because this wide receiver draft class is amazing. It kind of shows you how good the class is with how dead the wide receiver market was. Like, you expected all these guys to be signed on the day the tampering period began, and 2 days later they're looking around like, shit, is anyone gonna pay us? What are we doing? Juju is settling for half of what he was supposed to get and staying where he's at because they're looking like, you know what? The money's going to go up next year. The wide receiver class is deep. I can find what I'm looking for in the third round this year instead of going out and paying $20 million to someone. And after Allen Robinson and Chris Godwin got tagged, it pretty much was like, all right, it's either someone's going to overpay the hell out of all these guys or we got to wait for the draft.
I mean, whoever they are, they're telling the Baltimore Ravens no anyway, so it really doesn't matter.
Oh, my God. Poor Lamar.
Poor Lamar, man. Get that guy some help. He got Sammy Watkins over there on one leg. I give the move of Curtis Samuel to the Washington football team A-. As I said, I give it the highest ranking or grade out of everybody. And because of one specific statistic, and it's something that Aniba was mentioning earlier, the Washington football team used the jet motion, the 5th most out of 32 teams in the NFL in 2020. They also gained the 3rd most yardage out of that. Samuel had a little over 40 carries last year, and to me, he shines more with the ball in his hands behind the line of scrimmage in those kind of formations than he does as a wide receiver. You know, if you look at his numbers since 2017, none of it really jumps off on you when you see it on paper. But when you put him in that role, get the ball in his hands in open field, he is a playmaker, and I think he is the missing puzzle piece on this offense. Opposite side of Terry McLaurin. Like I said, I give the move A-. To me, it was the move that made me the most excited. And in my opinion, made the fan base most excited. I mean, the morale was up. You know, we were all down. We couldn't get Galladay. But once you saw Samuel reuniting with Rivera, Turner, everybody, I think everybody was happy to see that. So, but that does gateway into our next player, guy we've already kind of foreshadowed to a couple times, and that is former Titan and Buccaneer wide receiver Adam Humphries. I'm sick of the damn Trey Quinn comparisons already. People are already throwing that around a little bit too damn much. I'm not even going to entertain that. Humphries was slightly overpaid in Tennessee. I think it was a pretty big 4-year deal. Couldn't really find a place in that offense and couldn't really stay on the field either. You know, the football team reforms that Tampa Bay connection he had with former quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think for the value, it's a great signing. I give it a C+. You know, we get our true guy in the slot. What do you guys grade it?
I'll go first. I'll give it a solid B. Because he checks the boxes for what we need at the position. Yes, I hate the Trey Quinn things, you know, just like we do it with black athletes, with white receivers, they're all just put into this same box. You know the term sneaky athletic. We know, man, like just so because true. All of them, you know, they're fast enough. They're crafty enough in their route running, and they know how to sit into the soft spot of a zone. They're all sneaky athletic. Oh my God, stop it! He's gonna do what we need him to do, and he can be easily replaced in this draft with the amount of great slot receivers there. So it'd be a good solid B to a B- for me.
I like that. I like the sneaky athletic thing right there too. To me, that just gives me real Steven Montez being the next Taysom Hill vibes. You know, people just love to. Don't even get me started.
What do you think about that? What did you think about that Steven Montez gadget thing?
Just every time I see him on the football field, he just looks like he shouldn't be there. I don't know what it is, but Montez just never, you know, any time, any position. I think I heard you talk about this on your show as well. Anytime he's on the football field and he's even close to like taking a snap, he looks like he's gonna shit his pants. You know, there's so many pre-draft articles. I mean, it's so much stuff written on him possibly having kind of a place in this quarterback room, and then you know him slandering Haskins and all this other stuff. That
was hilarious though. That was hilarious.
When I think of the quarterbacks, Steven Montez isn't even in my head at all. Like he's not even a part of the conversation. So
Adam,
the fact that they would even Aniba is when it comes to his athleticism, does anything even jump off the board? Like
that's what I was about to ask.
Is there anything about Montez that would even warrant him getting that role?
Yeah, and it's funny. I wrote about him a long time ago, early on, guys, when the injury started out, but not praising him, not putting him up there just as a gadget guy, because I did watch what happened is I was watching Laviska Shenault for the draft, a lot of tape on him. I watched every single game, and I'm going to tell you, Montez, the guy can make some plays, but it's not really in the passing game. It's if you want to have him do some Taysom Hill kind of things. He's not athletic like that, so I'm not going to, pine for him to be a receiver. But I do think that they protected him for a reason. It's odd. They had COVID rules, and they had, I think it was 5 weeks in a row, only can protect 4 guys, and he was protected every time. And I understand it has to do with he's a quarterback. You put some time in him. But I do think that they have some plans for him. I'm not saying that I think he's going to be great. I just, as an evaluator, as a fan, I have to try to find that middle ground. Me, I would not have him on the roster any longer. I'd look at somebody else. But I do think that the guy is nearly 6'6", and I think it was like 250, and he can run a 4.55. So stiff or shell shock or not, they'll try to develop those. Hey, maybe he does end up being a tight end. We just don't know. But I
gotta find the basketball highlights because I'm sure he's a basketball player. I'm sure that's what it was.
He did. I believe he did play high school basketball for member too. But no. Yeah, you just gotta take it with a grain of salt because you gotta understand when it's practice squad, that doesn't necessarily mean that's where they're gonna be. It could be mean they could be playing a tight end on the scout team. They could be playing this, and that's where I could see them using somebody like him. So he is valuable. But in the end, I don't see much development with that because, we'll talk about, what we think about in the draft. But right now, I think that they're going to roll with what they have. And then in the draft, they'll see how the board falls to them in day 3.
I guess we'll see how things work out with Steven Montez. Like you said, I don't really think he should be on the roster come week 1. I don't think he should be with the organization in any capacity. I just haven't really seen much with it. You got to get the clickbait stuff. I don't blame you. I mean, it like you said, the former basketball trope, all those tropes are there. Yeah. Speaking of tropes, what do you grade the sneaky athletic Adam Humphrey signing?
See, it's crazy because, he's dear to my heart. When I first got into really scout training was 2018 when he had that year with Ryan Fitzpatrick. So he was my first assignment at the Scouting Academy with Louis Riddick and those guys. And I watched every single game from him. And so I know the ins and outs of him. So what you're getting is 2018, you got 816 yards, 5 touchdowns, 76 receptions with Fitzpatrick. So what you're doing is you're essentially bringing in somebody that knows the ins and outs of how Fitzpatrick plays when plays break down. In the end, we're going to get about 10 games because, I forgot the comp you guys said earlier, but no, think poor man's Wes Welker. That's more what we're looking at with him just because he has had some concussion issues. He has some injuries. It's kind of a trend that happens with these prototypical white receivers. They start to get these concussions and it just keeps happening. So like I said, and that's why I wrote this article about the guys that I really love on day 3. The board's going to fall. And I am predicting that Devontae Smith could fall to Washington. But if that kind of thing doesn't happen, there are so many guys on this day 3 that could have been 2nd-round picks last year. That's how good it is. So the fact that you're already bringing him in, that's something Washington wasn't doing in years past. They would have brought him in and said, we're done with wide receiver, and they don't draft one for the rest of the year. So I think by bringing him in, it's a solid C+ because the connection with Fitzpatrick. If not, I would have to probably give that move like a D+. But I think with Fitzpatrick, that brings it all the way up to a C+ based on it was his career year, best year they had together. So
I think Humphreys would have been a Gruden guy. I think that's a fair thing to say, right?
Yeah, definitely.
He would have been a Gruden guy.
They'd have a beer. They'd have a beer together for sure.
A grinder.
He twists his nipple a couple times for sure.
So speaking of former involvement with the Cincinnati Bengals, that moves us on to our next player, next sign for the Washington football team. In my opinion, the most intriguing one. Former first-round pick, cornerback William Jackson. To me, Bengals just didn't want to pay up. Unlike Ronald Darby, who we lost, Jackson can actually stay on the field, missing only 5 games in the last 4 seasons. Inks a 3-year deal, $42 million, $26 million guaranteed. This move is vintage late night Rivera. All these moves are just coming in the dead of the night, man. I feel like everybody was complaining about how we weren't doing anything in free agency, and then we'd wake up and they'd already have the graphic up and they'd already have a video announcing it to the team. I remember when this one happened, a lot of people were just like, who? William Jackson? Who's that? That's our other cornerback. A lot of people roll their eyes, especially when Darby left. But after watching the tape on him, I got to say I am very excited about him joining the organization. I think he has a lot of upside. Just got to watch the tape, man. Not a household name. Adam, what's your overall grade for the move?
He's probably the best press man corner that's been on Washington for, I don't know, a long time. And what's that's telling me is they're not going to go back to the traditional cover 2. What they do a lot in Cincinnati and what they did, he's done his whole career is a lot of cover 3, a lot of press bail. So when you're able to do that in coverage with a kind of defensive line we have, when you sit back and the play kind of happens, when you see teams kind of go quick game and try to pick you apart, that's when your pass rush gets taken away. But when you have someone like William Jackson that can play press man, everyone rises. And don't forget Jimmy Moreland, another press man corner who was basically taught to back off because they just didn't have the help. So now you're having someone in that's going to encourage Jimmy to do that. I think that it's a solid B+ move, and it could be an A. We get through training camp, because I think that what he does is going to rub off on everyone. I think we're going to see Fuller play a lot more free safety. I think they're going to mix it up with him. So you're going to probably see William Jackson, QBX, and Moreland more in the slot, and then Fuller will be, moving around. And I think you'll see a lot of that with the few positions that they have. But, to have him to be able to come in and take advantage of what Washington can do up front, I think it's going to allow JDR to just pin his ears back and just let this defense go. And there'll be certain games, and I think the Giants are a perfect scenario. As good as they are, Daniel Jones, when you get that pressure in his face, he makes mistakes. So this is the kind of move right here that combats that Kenny Golladay signing. And this is not something that Washington usually did. They would just go for the hot guy. They really went for someone that they're going to play twice a year for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and like you said, Jackson knows how to get his hands on people, man. He doesn't always come down with the ball. He got 11 pass breakups. Kind of clamps down Kenny Golladay, since we're going to talk about the Giants there. Had a lot of good tape against him. Like you said, he can pair up with Kendall, or he can hold his own. He does well against those elite receivers in the National Football League. Like I said, doesn't have that elite playmaking ability, but very sound technique, very good at the line of scrimmage. And in my opinion, a very great value signing as well. Rio, what are your overall thoughts, and what is your grade?
This is actually my favorite pickup of the offseason, because I think he's clearly the best defensive back in our DB room, safety or cornerback right now. I think it's gonna be a significant upgrade. Like the night we signed him, first of all, I've liked him since he's come out of Houston. I like the guy. I like the swagger. I love the personality. I don't know if you guys heard him on with B. Mitch and JP.
Beat me to it. You beat me to it.
It was awesome, man. They asked him a question like, did AB or any of the receivers you would play in the AFC North ever talk shit to you? He was like, you can't really say anything. We don't catch the ball. I love it. We need that type of swagger on the defense. Our defensive line is incredible. He's praised it multiple times. He's licking his chops to get out there behind this defensive line.
Why wouldn't they?
Hell yeah. I think you see his interceptions pick up with the defense that he just got placed on this year. A+ signing for me, because I think he's going to be a top 3 player on the defense, might be the second behind Chase Young.
Yeah, Cincinnati's line was garbage. So that, they were talking about Geno Atkins. He got released because he hasn't been good in years. Since Jackson has been there, that line has gone to crap. So, you put him against that's what I'm talking about, opportunities. If you have a guy that, sub 4.3 speed, can be a press man, and can get his hands, it's not that he drops interceptions, he's just not getting targeted as much. So when you put all that together, next year when this salary cap goes up $27+ million, this guy's going to be the middle of the pack signing, but he's going to be a top 10 ranked cornerback. So
exactly,
they're making good moves.
We normally go for the splashy moves. We normally go and get like the highest sought out person on the market, But Rivera and this coaching staff, Jack Del Rio, I'm sure had a say in it. When I got a guy who was a true scheme fit.
And actually, like he was probably the most coveted corner coming out this year too. Yeah. That's why it was funny to me when I seen a couple people like, "Oh my God, we let Darby go and we signed this guy." I was like, "Yo, he's way better than."
This
Ronald
is the perfect
Darby.
response to that. Perfect.
He's better than Ronald Darby, man. Come on, man.
Yeah, way better than Ronald Darby. And the tape doesn't lie. Anybody who's listening to this who says William Jackson, who? Just go run the tape, man. It's there.
Best signing we made.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It does have the best ceiling. I think he is going to end up probably being a top 3 player on this defense. I gave it a B+. I got to ask guys about the comments, though. You're talking about his appearance on Finley and Mitch's show. What did you guys think about his comments about the Cincinnati Bengals fan base? You guys catch that part?
Yeah, I seen that.
Did you hear that, Adam?
He kind of like joked that that they don't support the team.
Yeah,
I got some. I was going to give it an A-, and then that just kind of gave me some Bashar Breeland vibes, so I kind of backed off a little bit.
No, he kept it real. I like the transparency. He did. Like, my favorite part of the interview was JP pretty much calling the Bengals shit, and he just agreed with him and kept it pushing.
Said, man, the poor guy had no help over there, and now he gets to leave. A team that didn't want to pay him, and on the Bengals, God, who wants to go there? Who wants to get drafted there? I mean, it's bottom of the barrel. You get to go somewhere with a top 5 defensive unit, and just ball out, play football, play fun, play fast, play aggressive. So I don't blame William Jackson for being eager to come to the nation's capital, especially with Jack Del Rio at the helm. So great move by the Washington football team, but I feel like we've said that a lot today. But overall, we're all very high on all these moves. What do you guys totally rank or grade the draft class? Rio, I'll start with you. Draft class, free agency class.
How about to say, we're going to grade the draft class before we come? We making predictions on the draft? Nah, you're good. It sounds a little too optimistic, and I'm not that rah-rah guy, but I'm going to give it an A- because we checked some boxes we needed to check. We still have holes to fill, but honestly, with what we did, we don't, like Adam said, we only really have one glaring hole on the team, and that's the linebacker group. Like we need to fix the tight end. We probably need a bookend left tackle long-term, maybe because Cornelius Lucas is like 30, and he finally played the best of his career when he came here last year. I'm not sure if I want us to take a tackle in the first round, but I wouldn't be mad if we did. But right. I feel like we checked some boxes. We hit some areas. We have massive upgrades at these positions. And I think we did better than a lot of teams did. And we didn't do the Patriots route and sign every goddamn person available. So I'm going A- for our group.
We got our guy, giving Nelson Aguilar way more than he deserves over there. I think people are a little too high on that Patriots free agency class as well, so I got to agree with you there. Aniba?
I wrote an article about Levante David, and I understand he went back, and a lot of people are saying, well, he's returned the Super Bowl contenders. I truly believe that if Washington threw the money at him, I do think he would have considered it, because for what he signed, I think it was the spot track was close to $15 million a year. And I think he got $5 million less than that, or $4.5 million less. So that was his market. And they're pretty on point with their market. So the fact that they didn't go for him or another, that brought my whole free agency down to, it's that B- range, because now you're going into the draft. And I hope that they get that middle linebacker solved in the first 2 rounds, because people talk about the depth of it. You start to get past those top 2. You're starting to get into 5th, 6th, 7th at the position. So when we talk about DPA and stuff like that, you have to also rank how many are after them. So if they did that, it would have made a difference. But to me, again, solid B, because we're putting a lot of eggs in the basket for the draft as far as offensive line and linebacker right now. Those are the 2 things that are my biggest concern right now.
Yeah, to me, this front office put a lot of fix-a-flat in a lot of situations, a lot of position groups that we really, really needed some assistance in. You give Terry some help. You give us another corner who's questionably, like Rio said, better than Kendall Fuller.
Right.
You get a guy who could be your true slot receiver until you possibly address that in the draft as well. You fix a lot of issues. You don't spend a lot of money. You still come at this with a relatively good amount of cap space. So I got to give the Washington football team, same as Rio, an A-. I thought
One more thing I forgot to say, the Brandon Schreiff thing, that's causing a lot of problems, in my opinion. I think if they solve that way or another, I think they could have gone up to Tunney. They could have gone after, the other best guard, and he's holding them up. And he's not going to re-sign, okay? Because if you look in the history, a second franchise tag, I think it's been one ever in history that's done it. So it's a waste of money because he doesn't want to be here. He wants to. So I think that out of the whole offseason, that was one of the worst things that they did, because he's also had some injury issues. Morgan Moses had, crazy to me, probably one of his best years, and he actually made him look really good if you look at a lot of the tape. So all that money into him, a guard, I'm cool with a guard as long as
he's an all-pro.
To me, but he's still a right guard. He's still a guard.
I wish I could be on board with the all-pro, and I get pro. Not that it's in the Pro Bowl range, but the all-pro is getting watered down a lot. You guys have to admit it. It's getting watered down.
It is.
Not everybody. With offensive line, it is.
And letting a guy like that leave the building just isn't going to be excusable.
There were some good guards not playing last year too. That's another thing.
And it's year to year. If you look at all-pro guards, it's like this year it's this guy, and this year it's this guy. I understand Brandon Schreiff. He's got a lot of respect, and I'm not saying he doesn't earn it, but for that kind of money, 2 years in a row, fully guaranteed. So he's going to, I think it's like 30-something. Kirk Cousins money for 2 years, something like 30-something million he's going to end up getting.
That's like 37.
That's crazy.
The biggest concern.
That's crazy.
Exactly. And the biggest concern for me is imagine he knocks it out the park. Another great season for him. He's gone anyway. He miraculously stays on the field.
He's still
No, he's gone. I agree. But the negotiations, what you're paying him now is the floor. It only goes up.
Floor.
And it's the floor.
And that's the issue, because paying around $20 million for right guard. That's not the move, even with the money going up. I mean, I heard Kime say it today on his mailbag of his podcast. We've made him offers that would make him the highest paid guard in the league, and it's not getting it done. If you're trying to set a culture on leaders and guys that want to be here, this is not that.
Bye, Brandon.
Exactly. So
I'll give you guys something you don't think about much. And, going back, it goes back to some of the guys I know went to college, and I took some recruiting trips with them when they were going around. And a lot of the former NFL guys would come back to the schools during the recruiting trips to try to woo people. And one thing I always heard is they always talked about money. They always talked about teams, but don't underestimate the environment they're in, the city they're in, and what's going on. And right now, it's a little different for Chase Young and these guys compared to him. Brandon Streff is more that Midwest kind of guy, and I can definitely see him, if they try to make a final run with, Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, see how that works out. And I don't know their whole roster, but I'm just throwing out that team, for someone that I think he would go to. It's Kansas not just City. About the money. Yeah. He knows he can get the money, and it's not that he has a problem with Rivera, or maybe he does. I just think he knows he can get that money and be where he wants to be with his family.
That's
and
a great point.
That matters more to people than they believe. I've had ex-players and stuff and coaches tell, recruits that, make sure that whenever you get in, don't badmouth any team, because even if you go to them, you could quickly be an opportunity somewhere else. And teams remember that slander during, the draft process. So, it's just something to keep in mind.
They can find those old tweets either way. It all comes to haunt you. Old takes exposed, man.
Hey, man, my guy Sheriff just wants to hunt, fish, and eat flapjacks, man.
He's got to go pretty far in Virginia to do that.
He wants to be with his cows, man.
Yeah, Leesburg, Ashburn's not the move for him, man.
No,
it's all good.
I see him going somewhere cold too, Adam. And he could say whatever he wants to on that podium, but at the end of the day, Trent Williams said he was going to be a Redskin for life. It's a business, and that market for guards is just going to get crazy. So last question about free agency, guys. Do you anticipate any other signings? And if you could make one right now, what would it be? Rio, I'll start off with you.
That was a good one. Okay. I think I would dip into one of these lower named linebackers. Like, I don't know. I think we can get that position solved in the
draft.
Why
lower name?
Because there isn't really any huge – what was the guy, Wilson from the Vikings? He's still available. Like, what would be like a big –
Alexander?
I wouldn't call that a big – I mean, you got to someone's going to take a flyer on him, but Quan Allen coming off an Achilles injury,
it's a red flag.
And for someone whose game relies on their explosion and how they attack the football, that's a scary thing. That's a career-ending injury, no matter how. Even though he's 26 years old.
Yeah, but how many times has this organization on this defensive side of the ball taken risks on people who had health concerns? I mean, Montez Sweat, that was a guy that his first round.
I think his
Donovan Allen had a foot issue. A
shoulder and the arthritic shoulder. Yeah, but that's different though. Like seeing an Achilles is one of those things in sports you rarely see people come back from, and you never really see production rise after an Achilles injury.
Rarely.
I don't know, man. I would kick in the can on him. I'd give him kind of a low end deal. Apparently, a lot of teams are in.
I would take it. I would take that. I would take a flyer on it, but it would have to be like the league minimum.
Have to be league minimum. And I heard he's asking for more than that. Adam, what about you?
Yeah, see what it is right now. Right now, nobody. But what's going to happen is after the draft, that's where we're going to get a second wave. And I see it's not a receiver, but I see a Deshaun Jackson like signing. Like somebody will be available because we've heard from Tampa Bay Howard, their tight end. They brought back Gronk. They like their other guy more than Howard, and they've been trying to move him. Nobody wants to give up a second or third. That Alabama kid is legit, man. I could see him hitting the market. I could see that. And you're talking about getting him for, at that second wave, $5 million on a 1-year deal. So if you can walk out of that draft, you'll grab it. Let's just say we grab Brevin Jordan, then we have Logan Thomas, and then turn around and pick Howard for like $5 million. That's the kind of stuff I like. Everyone, talking about our receivers, having guys like that, man, this team would be crazy, man.
Throw one of those 2 third-rounders at Howard, man. Bring him over here. Yeah. We've been talking about him forever, and I feel like he's almost.
See, my issue with the trade is that, and someone talked about that with me because another Alabama fan. I said right now, usually when you do invest high like that, the agent, they're expecting an extension right away. So I think that everyone's kind of doing the right thing. They're waiting it out. I'm telling you, there's been talks around these owners. There's a form of collusion going on. Don't sleep on that. There is. Okay.
I'm not sleeping
There's
on it
been
at all.
rumors. There's been rumors about it for a long time. So I think that they know when that second wave hits, we're talking about bargain guys, because this draft is going to produce so much talent, so much undrafted guys that are coming out. So I think that these guys are just holding out, hoping they're going to get it. But you're going to see guys like Howard, CJ Mosley. That's another name. The Jets,
man, please.
We're talking about moving him.
What's that deal, though? Who wants that money?
No, I'm not talking about, I'll tell you, but those guys can get released. You're talking about 1 year. No, I'm not trading 1 year. 1 year deals across the board. That's what I think you're going to see. CJ Mosley, Howard, you're talking about, you can probably get those guys combined for under $8 million, $9 million. So to me, that's what I see happening, because everyone tells me this second wave, it's going to be bargain bins. Otherwise, these guys are going to be waiting until training camp week 1, 2 to get on a roster. We
were actually pretty close to getting CJ Mosley, but the Jets just threw that freaking Brinks truck at him. And then, he signed with them. And then, like we're talking about with injuries that ended up plaguing him. But he comes back. You add another Alabama guy to that defense. You got your answer at middle linebacker. That's for sure. When it comes
He's a utility guy. You bring him in exactly. And whatever middle linebacker you get in the draft, you move him around. And, you can't, as much as I like Zaven Collins and I like Nick Bolton, I don't want to be like, okay, you get him, you plug him. I want him to plug in the defense, but to be the all-out Mike and call everything right away, you got to have some guy in there. So I am hoping that they're going to get someone like that in the second wave.
And, I'm very satisfied. Like I said, this free agency class got my rocks off, and like I said, that second wave coming, man. You got to have a very patient approach, and that's what Rivera and them have. They're going to let the cards fall where they may. When talking about potential trade ups, we're going to get that a little bit next week, but talking about potential trade ups, they're like, we'll see what happens. And like I said, this front office building off that foundation from last season. The next step is the draft, and next week we will do our Washington Brawl mock draft rounds 1 through 7. Yes, we're doing trade ups, all that fancy stuff. So make sure you guys do not miss that. Up next, we got running the Logan Paulsen interview, former Washington football team tight end. Great film analysis. Rio, Aniba, I'm extremely thankful to have you guys on the team moving forward. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having us on, man. I had a good time. It's good energy here. There's a good balance. Adam, he balances perfect with us because, he's a professional. Like, he does this. Like, this is a guy that sounds like he should be working for an organization, and we're just talking shit over here. So it's good cohesion. It's the best of every world.
I definitely have fun. The thing is, we all don't have to agree, but, I believe it or not, you guys don't see all the shows. You see all the shows on social media, and I'm proud of those as well. I'm proud of whatever I can put on my site. But for every one of those shows, there's, the homegrown shows, the call-in shows that I'm in, and it matters. The fans, they're just looking for people to get on the level with them. And I think you saw Washington really embrace that with them this year. And that was the reason they're the number 1 social media in the league. So I think, this is, a good opportunity for all of us to help each other. And, there's guys out here that are doing it for a hobby. And there's, guys like us that are, really trying to make something out of this. So, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to this going forward. Hail DC. This is going to be awesome, guys.
Oh, yeah, man. We're here to brawl. Check out Rio on the Ram with Rio podcast. Just got that started up. Just dropped a new episode. Great stuff over there. Check out Adam Aniba and the Burgundy and Gold Report. And, of course, check out us here at Washington Brawl. That isn't all we have today here, ladies and gentlemen. Now running our interview with Washington football team former tight end Logan Paulsen about Justin Fields, Mac Jones, all those pro days, the draft, and more.
Football is here, and so is your shot at millions. Thanks to our partnership with DraftKings, all new players can play free for millions with your first deposit. Here's how it works. 1. Create your DraftKings DFS account and make a deposit. 2. DraftKings will credit your account with free entry to these contests. 3. Draft your lineup and go for the millions in top prizes. Just go to dkng.co/brawlpod to play. That's dkng.co/brawlpod. Act quickly. This offer won't be around forever. Minimum $5 deposit. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
And what a way to come back other than having a special guest and former Washington football team player, tight end Logan Paulsen. Logan, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, man. Thank you for having me.
Logan, you've been very studious in the film room ever since you hung up your cleats, man. Love your film breakdowns and everything you do for 106.7 The Fan. It's an honor to have you here on Washington Brawl. You ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's get into it, man. I'm excited.
from my understanding, you initially wanted to coach after your NFL journey, but now you're a film breakdown connoisseur of sorts. What kind of led you down this path?
Yeah, so I think, when I was playing, one of the things that everyone said to me was like, oh, you're like a coach on the field. Especially in the twilight of my career, I was mentoring a lot of the young guys, kind of basically, teaching them everything that I had learned over the course of my career, kind of making sure they were up on the playbook, teaching them study habits, teaching them different techniques. And so the transition seemed very natural, I think, for a lot of people who knew me to get into coaching. However, those guys work insane hours. Like Mike Shanahan, for example, used to get in at 4:30 in the morning and leave at 10:30 at night. And, I feel like I've kind of done that show. I've rode that rodeo for a while. Like the last 4 years of my time in the NFL, I was playing in a different state from my family. So I was missing whole swaths of time, like with my kids and my wife. So I figured there's got to be a better way to do it and still keep me around the game. And 106.7 The Fan and Grant Paulsen kind of provided an opportunity for me to do some stuff with them, which was great. And then, I was watching all this film, getting ready for the games each week, and I thought I should put some of this stuff on Instagram and just talk about things I think are interesting. And that's kind of what led me to the moment I am at now here on the Brawl podcast.
Hey, man, happy to have you here. Something about these former Washington football team tight ends, man. They're just they're film gods. I mean, they understand the X's and O's, and they're bringing it to social media. And I love what you're cooking over there, man. So I had to bring you on. But, believe it or not, some of my favorite moments as a fan growing up, of course, the iconic 2012 season, were you making that huge catch on 4th and 10 against the Giants, that touchdown catch against Seattle. I remember my little brother was 2 at the time. I thought he was going to jump off the couch when that happened. He was ecstatic. But what is your favorite memory from playing in the Burgundy and Gold?
You know what? I think that 2012 season is pretty high on the list. I think it's probably the most fun I've ever had playing football and the best football I was playing probably. And just the team was really cool. Great bunch of guys that I'm still in contact with till this day. And, obviously that touchdown in the playoff game is something I'll have for the rest of my life. And, yeah, man, just a really solid, kind of amazing year, amazing experience to kind of go on that 7-game win streak and just kind of feel that emotional high of being untouchable for 2 months of my life. You know what I mean? It was pretty cool.
The fans felt untouchable as well. And, going on that 7-game win streak, it was something to be proud of. Like I said, it was iconic to me and a lot of the fans. I know things didn't quite work out that way a couple seasons afterwards, but putting together that string of wins was a very, very big deal. I remember when Washington clinched the playoff spot this year, I remember seeing your post on Instagram saying, it doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there. And, it was kind of cool being able to relive that and make it to the playoffs for the first time since I think 2015, bringing the Burgundy and Gold. But yeah, 2012 will always be a year that goes down in history. And I remember you as a very big part of that. Like I said, a very exciting year. But, the future is bright here in the nation's capital, as I was talking about. The draft is approaching, and there's a plethora of great young prospects in this 2021 class. I'm going to do a little bit of a roll call here, Logan, and kind of give you a couple guys that I think the Washington football team might have a chance to snag come April. And I'm going to start first at number, with the 19th overall selection. I would love for the Washington football team to select Notre Dame's own Jeremiah Owusu-Konoya. I cannot say it right. I heard you kind of stumble across it as well, but I mean, that's my guy, man. I know we kind of missed that on guys like Levante David in free agency. Didn't really expect that to happen. You had all 22 starters in Tampa Bay return for the first time, I think, in the Super Bowl era. So kind of wasn't surprised when he didn't come. So you're going to have to bring in some guys, kind of some homegrown talents. How much a difference maker do you think he can be at 19?
So I think he can be a huge difference maker. And I think it's a little bit because of the way the position is going. The linebacker position is going in the NFL. I think you get a bunch of guys who, back in the day, it used to be, you got to kick a fullback's teeth in. You got to stop power. You got to stop these gap runs. You got to stop the hogs, all these different variables. You got to be big. You got to be mean. You got to be physical. Now, 60% of the time, even on first, second down, teams are passing. And so those guys have to be able to cover and, be physical in the run game and be physical at the position, but it's a different type of physicality. It's a different type of athleticism. And so I think this kid kind of playing the field, it's like a field safety in college because, the hashes are a little bit wider. So that player to the field has to cover a ton of grass. And so he played that position, which is a tremendous demand athletically. He moved inside in the box. He set edges. Like He's a guy who has a lot of versatility at the linebacker position, but I think the most important thing is he makes you more athletic, and he gets you in. You can stay in base defense a little bit longer comfortably with him, knowing that he can match up on a tight end. He can cover a back. He can do all these different things. And he's a great blitzer. He kind of fits Jack Del Rio's vision for the position. They blitz those guys a ton. So I think he would be a great fit in that regard. And I just think it comes down to mindset and what they value at the position. I think he fits modern NFL really nicely, and especially looking at the division, like, you got to cover Dallas and all those receivers, all those receiving weapons. New York did a great job this offseason upgrading their offensive weaponry. So I think you got to make sure that you're kind of keeping up with that arms race. And so obviously they did a great job, Washington football team, bringing in a really dynamic corner. But also I think it's imperative that they upgrade the linebacker position, just get more athletic and get with a bunch of guys that you feel can handle these matchups that are now every week in the NFL, backs, tight ends, slot wide receivers.
To me, it's essential that you were adequate in coverage as a linebacker in the National Football League. I know your pro comparison for him was Telvin Smith. I thought that was perfect. My biggest thing about our linebacking group, I think they made a lot out of a very little in 2020. But my biggest thing is that, like I said, in today's NFL, you look at guys like Devin White, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go on that run, and he is absolutely shutting down every tight end, and he's playing as guys like Travis Kelce in the Super Bowl and just absolutely locking them down. You got to have that guy that can go from sideline to sideline in the middle of the field. Like you said, the hashes are a little bit wider in college, but at the end of the day, you got to have that athleticism. And, he's one of those guys that will hit you in the mouth. He can get everywhere you need him to get, got a great motor. Like I said, you mentioned him playing safety. I want to get your thoughts on the possibility of Landon Collins possibly moving down to linebacker. That's something that's been discussed. I know Landon shot that down a couple times, and I'm kind of straying away from the draft here, but just was kind of curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think that would be an interesting switch for him. I think it kind of fits his skill set more naturally. I think he's always been a great box player, and by box I mean kind of that run stuffing safety, a guy playing near the line of scrimmage, great blitzer, knows where to fit in the run, can take on blocks physically. However, I think some of his coverage liabilities are still there. I think he is made to kind of come up and attack the line of scrimmage, and that's what makes him so good at what he does and so dangerous. However, I think it's also the stiffness of his hips is still there. The linebacker type build is still there. I think he's a great safety. I think he's been a great safety for a long time. But I think, the game is kind of transitioning a little bit away from that skill set at the position. So, I think it would probably be a move that would add years to his career. But again, I'm not sure that you would feel super great with him in coverage all the time, just because of how he's built athletically. He's very fast, straight line, not super great change of direction, and not the same stuff you see with JOK. You know what I mean? A guy who can move and match up with people, great feet. Yeah, so that's kind of my assessment. I think it would be good for him long term, but it's hard. It's really hard to switch positions. Everyone says, "Oh, he's got the skill set for it," and he absolutely does. But he's been playing safety his whole life.
A lot of miles on that car, man. The human body takes a toll. I mean, you know about that yourself. Can I get a younger guy like JOK? I like that. You get a younger guy like that to come in. He's got more of a motor, a lot younger, on a team-friendly deal. 4 years and 5th-year options you were talking about on your film eval. I think that's just a great deal for both sides. And I like you said, I think the game's moving past Landon a little bit. I wouldn't say that him moving to linebacker would be a bad thing, but like you said, right. I just don't think there's much longevity in that.
I think that's absolutely right. I think that's the thing you question, is because he's going to take a year or two to get comfortable with the position switch, and then where is he in the deal? You still owe him a ton of money. Nothing against Landon. I think he's done a great job in his time here as a Washington football team safety, but that's the nature of the game, is change and transition, and everyone has to go through it no matter how good you are. So.
Yeah, and the way that deal is structured, I don't think anyone loathes talking about that deal more than Ron Rivera when he's on that podium. So it's going to be interesting to see how both sides work that out, see if Coach Del Rio can work him into that rotation, see if we can get most bang for our buck. So moving on, we're going to the offensive line. Definitely a lot of people see that as a position of need. Cornelius Lucas coming in after, Trent Williams' awful exodus, honestly had a really solid campaign. During this coaching staff kind of bargain bin shopping with a lot of low-risk, high-reward signings. I know you were high on the prospect I'm about to bring up. Do you think Christian Dillashaw, left tackle from Virginia Tech, can be a difference maker day one? And do you think he's worthy of a pick at 19, saying he's possibly the best player on the board? I mean, how some people are kind of they favor those local guys.
Yeah, no. So that's a really good question. I think there's a couple things about Garashaw. I'm messing his name up already. But anyway,
that's the thing.
I've talked to a couple of my former offensive line coaches, and they've mentioned that he is their number one offensive lineman behind Penei Sewell because of his athleticism, because of his length, because of his size. However, this is a really weird offensive line draft. Penei Sewell, he missed a year of football. The kid from Northwestern, Slater, he's 6'3", so is he going to actually be able to play left tackle despite all that athleticism? So the only guy who's kind of checks all the boxes so far is this kid out of Virginia Tech. However, you do see some things on film that make you a touch nervous. Like he gets a little bit lackadaisical, a little bit lazy. His pass set, despite the tremendous athleticism that he shows kind of in all facets of the game, he gets a little lazy, gets a little kind of run down. I just kind of wonder if it's a mindset thing or if it's a technique thing, it's a coaching thing, because they do run the ball a ton at Virginia Tech. Like they are a run-first offense. They got a running quarterback. Like that's what they want to be. That's what they want to do. So that's the thing that makes me nervous, because if you want a guy to come in and play left tackle for you right away, like that's kind of the nature of that position now. We just talked about how offenses are passing the football so much, and you need to be able at left tackle to pass protect. Like that's first and foremost. You need to be really efficient at it. Like if you look at guys around the NFL, Whitworth, Orlando Brown's kid in Baltimore, like they're huge, slow men who don't run block very well because they're so kind of, universal in size, but they pass protect really well because you can't bull them. You can't really get around them. They're just such a big person. And so that's my question. Like, do you have this tremendous athlete in the run game? Is it better to sacrifice some athleticism for a better pass protector? I don't know. The reason I thought he was a good fit at 19 is because I think he might make it to 19. I think there's a really good chance. I don't think there's a lot of teams above the Washington football team that are really looking or really hungry for tackles. But like I said, I've talked to a couple of people. He's their number 2 offensive lineman on the board. So if he did slip to that position, yeah, I'd say absolutely take him. And if the kid from Northwestern is there by some miracle, I would take him also, because he's going to upgrade your group tremendously day one. But I'd like to also point out that the Washington football team does not appear to have a tremendous interest in the offensive line. So they might feel really good about Lucas, and they might be looking for more of a developmental guy like Spencer Brown out of, I think it's the University of Northern Illinois. He's a former basketball player, great athlete, a guy that can develop for a year or two behind this group that they've kind of created. And maybe that's what they're looking for. And there are a whole bunch of guys like that. The kid from Clemson's like that, the left tackle. Guy maybe needs a year or two to kind of be that starting tackle. And they've kind of, if they feel good about it, I think that's the right move.
Absolutely. I don't think that's really at the top of their list of needs either. But if they were to go in that direction, I think Christian definitely is the most coachable. I know you pointed out that, he can fit both types of run schemes. I'm nowhere near going to compare him to an athlete the caliber of Trent Williams, even though we spoke of him earlier. But Christian definitely passes the eye test. I think people need to look past that local kid stigma. I think you can coach this guy up and turn him to a premier left tackle in the National Football League. But like you said, I don't think that's really at their top list of needs. I think he's a lot better than a lot of people are giving him credit for. And the fact that, he's at the top of the boards really doesn't surprise me. Yeah, both sides apparently seem very interesting. Christian said coming here would be a dream come true. Would not be the first time we heard that from some tech guys. But like you said, I think the pass protection is a liability. You really do think that's something they can get past?
So what I think with him is that you see such a good mover. Like he's a good athlete. He's a big, strong guy, good length. All the measurables are there. And you kind of say, well, maybe they don't demand this the premier pass protection technique from him there because they do run the football so much, because they do run so much play action. So you see the clay, you see the mold, right? You say all the athleticism is there. You just got to kind of shape it and move it the way you want. And so that's why that pre-draft interview process is so important, because you got to say, is this guy a smart kid? Can he learn what we want him to do? Is he going to be coachable? And I would imagine from what I've heard from guys that I know that he is that way. And so that's why they feel good about him, because they think once they get him, yes, he's going to fall right in. He's going to, especially in a room with like Morgan Moses and Sheriff, great leadership in that room. They can kind of get him going in the right direction early and turn him into the guy they want to turn him into.
Absolutely. And that's something I think I would be very interested to see come along. But, a lot of people kind of have that best player on the board mentality when it comes to the 19th overall selection. And a lot of mock drafts have us take another position that I don't really think we need super bad. But, if a good player's there, you take him, and that's a pass catcher. You have your Jamar Chase. I think he'll be gone by then. Jalen Waddle, I think his chances falling to 19 are a lot higher. Devontae Smith, who knows where he's going to go? Apparently people think they got Bambi out there because he's weighing in at 170. To me, that route running is still amazing. But if you had to pull all your money on one guy that you think would be there at 19, even if he is one that I didn't just name, who catches your eye?
So I think this is the thing about the wide receiver class this year. I think there's two premier pass catchers. One being the kid out of LSU, and the other kid being the tight end out of Florida. I think both those guys are going to be gone, long gone. And if one of them, by some miracle, is sitting around by some crazy feat, yeah, take one of those guys. But after that, I think Devin Smith's a really good player. I think he's got tremendous nuance in his route running, and that's why he's able to be successful at, being 170 pounds.
Masterclass.
There's the kid from Purdue who's really dynamic, explosive athlete, but how does he fit? What does he do for you that's really special? The other kid out of Florida who's like the mirror image of the kid from Purdue, small guy, quick, shifty. How do you use them? What do you do with them? And then the thing is, after that, you kind of say there's a lot of really talented guys that I think you get great value in as the draft goes on. You know what I mean? And so I think that's something with receiver, especially. If you don't get one of those top kind of blue chip prospects, you can wait because everyone's running the spread now. There's 1,000 receivers out there. There's guys in free agency that do really well. Undrafted free agents after the draft. And you're like, how did this guy go undrafted? Because there's just such a volume of receiving talent. When I was in Atlanta, for example, we had 3 dudes make the team who were undrafted free agents. Just because, you kind of select the traits, you study the film, you trust your front office. And so to me, you did a good job in free agency. I'm talking about the Washington football team now. You've cultivated a nice room. I think they still need true X. Obviously, they trust Curtis Samuel. They think he can do it, with the signing of Humphreys, right? You kind of say, oh, well, maybe that's how they view it. But on tape, he hasn't shown that he can be a true X, a route runner or whatever that may be. So I would say look for that true X. There are guys I think I'm going to butcher the school. I think he's from Central Michigan, the kid from Central Michigan. I think he'll be available in the second round. He's the guy who jumped 46 inches, right? He's 6'2".
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. His name didn't click with me.
Yeah, that is the type of guy athletically, and his production's great, but he'll be there in the second round. You know what I'm saying? So
absolutely.
Why not just bide your time and get a guy like that? There is great value in the receiver room. You don't need to mortgage it at 19 on someone that you don't love, is what I'm saying.
Exactly. I mean, to me, at 19, you're taking a day one starter. You need somebody that needs to come in and make an impact instantly. I know you're talking about that X receiver. I know my ADHD is kicking in a little bit, and I keep kind of asking you non-related questions. You don't think Kelvin Harmon could possibly be that X, or how are you feeling about him?
That's a great question. Everyone brings him up all the time, and I haven't seen him play. So I know in the Washington football team fan base, he's got a lot of support, and people really like him. But I don't know. Everyone seems to like him. I haven't seen enough tape on him to make an accurate assessment of him. Someone asked me yesterday if he could play tight end. So obviously there's a wide array of opinions regarding him. So maybe he could be. Obviously they retained Cam Sims, who's kind of the big receiver in the group now. And then you have all these really tremendous kind of athletes, at the position. That's what you want. You just got way more athletic. We talked about getting more athletic at linebacker. Right? Same thing with receiver. They just upgraded. They've got better people. They've got more talent. I think that's awesome.
Speaking of athletes, if there's somebody that I think would probably win your best player that I've done film breakdown on that we have no chance of drafting, I think Kyle Pitts would take home that award for you. And I've got to say, man, that guy was the Heisman winner in my eyes. I love Devontae Smith, man, but what Kyle Pitts does on tape, man, it's just it's freakish. I mean, the guy's a wide receiver 1 playing tight end. Like you said, a guy of that stature, of that size, having that athletic ability is absolutely unreal. It's generational to me. So it was nice to kind of hear somebody else kind of just gush over him as much as I feel like I did throughout most of the season. I mean, you saw how much of impact he made with Trask when he wasn't on the field in Oklahoma. I mean, it was night and day.
Yeah. So everyone was hyping him up. Everyone said he's all good. And every time I watch the number 1 guy for the year, I'm always like, he's okay. He's okay. He got this. And then when I watched his tape, I was watching Missouri. That was the first game I watched. And I was buzzing through, and you could just see, even when he wasn't getting the ball, you're like, this guy moves so differently. And then I'm like, oh, I bet he's kind of soft in the run game. He's not physical. And the first block is driving defensive ends off the ball. I'm like, there's nothing you don't like about it. You know what I mean? Like everyone's saying he should move to wide receiver. I'm like, no, it gives you so much value at tight end because of his physicality and his athleticism. So yeah, I mean, if he's there, I'm going to be throwing a party, but there's no chance. So, but yeah, I think I can honestly say this. I've never been more impressed with a tight end in college football, period.
Yeah, I didn't think I could love him anymore. I watched your film breakdown, and then I kind of went back and watched some more stuff on him as well, man. Whoever ends up picking him up, man, is getting an absolutely just a phenomenal playmaker. I'm just hoping he's not there to Dallas at 10. I'm not trying to make our life any
Oh,
harder.
that would be terrible.
I don't need. Oh, no, I'm going to speak it into existence. That's my fault. I don't even know why I spoke on that. But if you're going to draft a wide receiver, you got to have a quarterback. And you said on the Big Douglas show that you do not see the Washington football team finding their long-term solution at quarterback this offseason. And I think the Fitz-Magic move is very indicative of that. But, I got to talk about it because it was today, Justin Fields Pro Day. Turned some heads, running a 4.4, fastest by quarterback since Robert Griffin III. Scott Turner was present. If things, the stars line come draft night, do you see the Washington football team possibly making a move to get their guy, even if it's not Fields? And how do you feel about Fields?
So that's a really good question. I think there's been a lot of pre-draft trades and movement showing you that somebody values someone tremendously out of those top two guys, right? Which is the kid from BYU and the kid from Clemson, obviously. So after those two guys, there's somebody in there, Alabama, Ohio, and then North Dakota State, right? That one of them, someone is beating in on, right? So that means someone's going to be left holding the bag. And we've seen in the past, the guy who's left holding the bag usually slips, right? So, I don't think Mac Jones is necessarily that great. He had a great pro day. He looked good. He's got so many offensive weapons. It's so hard to evaluate him because every person he's throwing to is going in the first round also. So you're like, how good is he really? You know what I mean? Then you look at the kid from North Dakota State, and all of those kind of questions you have with Mac Jones are not existent because he's playing with lesser talent. So he's anticipating throws a little bit better, but you wonder about level of competition, right? And then you look at your boy from Ohio State, who you just talked about, and everything is there, but the offense there is so good and so gamed up. He's throwing to wide open receivers. He can hold the ball. He can pat the ball. And how does he learn to do all of these quarterback minutia tasks at the next level? So he might be the odd man out holding the chair hold the bag at the end of the night, and he might fall to Washington 19. And I say, because you have Fitzpatrick in the bag, this is the perfect situation. If he falls to you 19, you pick him. I don't think he will, but if he does, even the kid from North Dakota State, if either one of them is there, you take them. They can run. They're athletes. That's the way the position's going in the NFL. That natural athleticism, those throwers who can also run, and he can sit for a year behind a guy who's used to mentoring quarterbacks. And then you have an opportunity the following year to make some waves.
I know Fitz knows what he signed up for him to go from one situation right to another. We're possibly taking a quarterback day one of the draft. I kind of can't help but feel for the guy. Before we move on to Fields, I just want to take 1 second, talk about Lance. You talk about how Fields has everything cut out for him at Ohio State. There's that stigma there. Does the body of work concern you with Lance? He's over there averaging 18 pass attempts per game. Do you think that's going to translate to the next level, or this coaching staff's going to kind of have to groom him based off his athleticism more than his, next level preparation?
So the thing that worries me about him is I think he's got some really nice traits. I think he's got a nice release. I think he anticipates throws well. I think he's got great movement skills, which are awesome. I wish he would have run a 40 just to be able to quantify what's exactly going on with him. The thing that makes me a little nervous is his body size, like how that holds up in the NFL. He's not Lamar Jackson, who could make a guy miss in a phone booth. He's a little bit more stiff-hipped, you know what I mean? A little bit more. He's going to take more shots just by the nature of his athleticism. So I kind of wonder how that's going to transfer. And yeah, you always wonder about a kid who's coming from a smaller school, like Carson Wentz being the prime example. Like that guy came in and blew the doors off and looked great, but it's hard to continue to grow, because you're just challenged every single day. And I think it would be great if he was available because he could sit either one, Fields, or he could sit for a year and you'd feel confident, groom him for the future, let him work on those things, and then see what happens, And obviously, I'm not a huge Mac Jones fan. I just think as talented as I think he is, I think the position now is changing, right? Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, those are the guys that Allen up in Buffalo, those are the guys that are characterizing the position now, defining what it means to be a quarterback in the NFL. And unless that kid's Tom Brady, unless Mac Jones is Tom Brady, I don't want him, right? Because even Aaron Rodgers who's a little statuesque at times, has some athleticism. So I haven't seen that from him. I don't know if he's got that, but those other guys for sure do, and they can throw the football. I think they just need a little bit of polish to get them where they need to go.
Yeah, I can certainly envision Fields having kind of a meteoric fall, like you're saying, just based off of how much hype people put into it. I don't care how many heads he turned today. I think it's very possible for him to do that. I'm not unsold on Mac Jones myself. I thought he had a very good Senior Bowl. I think he has a lot of skills, a lot of traits. He can make a lot of throws that you need to make at the next level. I just don't envision the Washington football team making any huge trade, especially after what it cost Kyle Shanahan to get the 3rd overall pick. I just don't see Rivera in this front office making that move. I think Fields is the full package on and off the field, and he kind of does fit what you're talking about, that new age NFL. He had some interesting comments about the Ohio State quarterback stigma. He said that he stands apart from guys like Dwayne Haskins. And, of course, we've got some PTSD here in the nation's capital from how that entire thing played out. I haven't seen much on how you feel about Fields, but I'll ask you questions, yes or no. Do you think that he can be a franchise quarterback?
That's always a tough question, man, because there's so much more that goes into being a franchise quarterback. Like, obviously, there's the stuff on the field, right, which I think we saw with Haskins. Like, he's very athletic, live arm, talented, all those things. But there's the other things, too, right? How studious is he? What kind of leader is he? How the guys respond to him? Like, does the organization empower him? All of those things are super important. And those are things that you and I right now have no idea, right? Because we are not sitting in a room with him with our clipboards asking him really weird questions about random stuff to get his reaction and see how he does, right? We're not going to his school and talking to him. That's why that is a component of the pre-draft process that people vastly underrate. That is so important, especially with that position, right? Because you can get away with kind of a, like a guy, like a defensive end who's a little bit of a goof, right? But you can't have your franchise quarterback being a goof. They are the representative of your organization from now for the next 10 years. That's the goal, right? And, you just got to, there's so much more to that evaluation than just, oh, he can throw the ball good or he's fast, right? No. What kind of leader, what kind of kid is he? What kind of human is he, right? And that's something that takes a lot of time. So, physically, yes, I think he could do it. However, it's those other kind of social, emotional variables that need to be considered.
Like you said, he can pass the eye test all he wants, but we're not going to know those things unless we are behind closed doors. I certainly feel a lot better about the people who are making decisions now compared to who it was in the past. We're seeing a lot of things coming about Darius Geis in recent weeks and kind of learning that, there was a lot of red flags with a lot of these guys that were taken in prior drafts. And, people were just kind of looking past them. And I do trust Ron Rivera and this staff and this front office to make the right decision. And, I read Bruce Arians' book not too long ago. And this is when he was in Indianapolis, he told a story about how, he interviewed Robert Griffin III and Andrew Luck. And he said, Andrew Luck, he could just, everybody knew they were taking Luck in one. It was a shoe-in. But he said Luck just clicked all the boxes. And there was something about Robert that just, he didn't think that there was any longevity in it. Robert had that great rookie season. But at the end of the day, if Andrew Luck was held upright and got protection, he'd probably still be playing right now.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important that the Washington football team, like you said, make sure that not all of it is just on the field, but is off the field as well, because I don't think that this coaching staff is going to survive a goof at quarterback. So I don't really fault them for being selective about it. I don't fault them for being picky, but seeing them in all these pro days is certainly interesting. And, where there is smoke is fire. It's going to be a great thing to follow. Lastly, Logan, I know you had some nagging injuries in your career. How much did it make you roll your eyes when you saw that 17-week season, that season finale against Buffalo? What are your overall opinion on that?
The 17-game season?
Yeah, 17-game season, sorry.
That's not too bad. I don't love it. I think they did a good job of keeping the 3 preseason games. I think everyone says the preseason is not important, but to me it's super important because it kind of allows guys to slowly matriculate themselves back into football in the sense that, like, you're not going from 0 to 60 miles an hour. You're going from 0 to 15, 0 to 35, 0 to 55, and then you're at full speed. You're ready to go. And I think that's good. I like that they did that. I think that extra game, I don't love it because the 17-game season is brutal. Like, 16 games was I don't want to say terrible, but it is tough, man. Like, by week 13, 14, like, everyone on the roster who's playing a lot is hurt. Even guys who aren't playing a lot is hurt. It's just a long time to be operating at a high level. So it'll be interesting to see how guys hold up and what they do. But I think, that being said, guys are taking care of themselves better than ever. Like when I was leaving the NFL, 2018, 2019, my last 2 years, like, guys were doing all sorts of stuff to take care of themselves. And I think that is what it's going to take to make sure that these seasons and guys can have nice long careers, So
yeah, guys like Alvin Kamara weren't too happy about it. You got a lot of people rolling their eyes around the league about it, but NFL is going to keep it churning. It's good for business, more football. I'm not going to argue about that. I can say that from the comfort of my own home over here. But, Logan, like I said, man, you're a grinder. Love your content. When I think of that old tight end room, I know you got your Fred Davises, you got your other guys, but you were always tight end one in my eyes, man. It was an honor having you on. Thank you so much for your time, and let people know where they can find you, man, and your film.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you having me on, and like this was a ton of fun. You're doing a great job. But my Instagram handle is Logan_Paulsen82, and I do breakdowns, and I have a lot of fun. If you guys want to see anything specific, just tag me in there, and I'll do it.
Yeah, man, you guys head over there, check out those film breakdowns, talk about a couple of the prospects that we discussed today. So make sure you guys head over there. Logan, take it easy, man.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
It feels so good to be back, guys. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. But that is all the time we have today for the Washington Brawl podcast. If you're still here, as always, I greatly appreciate you. Make sure you head over to thebrawlnetwork.com so you can read our latest articles and pick up some merchandise to support your boy. Get our exclusive Sean Taylor 21 flag design. It was his birthday this week. Fly High 21. Also, make sure you subscribe and leave a rating or review wherever you're listening, and download this and other episodes of the Washington Brawl podcast wherever podcasts can be found. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch this and other episodes, as well as our Washington Brawl Madden 21 Game of the Week on Next Gen, which is coming back with a vengeance. The boys will be back next Thursday with our Washington Brawl mock draft rounds 1 through 7. And yes, trade-ups are permitted, so do not miss it. Peace.